Hello, my name is Kat, but I'm a dog person, and I love books, so let's talk about it. The first week of August was pretty good for books. I really liked how it ended with The Goose Girl because that was like a 5-star read. Absolutely fantastic. Check out my review in the previous week's review. You know, I had high expectations afterwards, and I surprisingly went to another 5-star read, Spinning Silver by N.E.W.T.S. I loved Miriam's character. I think that we could have focused a bit more on her and less on some other side characters, but it was good. We start out this book learning about our first character, Miriam. She is a boss-ass bitch.
I'm a boss-ass bitch.
Who decides that since her father is a terrible money lender who lends money to the entire town and doesn't ask for it back and is never strong enough to ask for the money that he's owed, and his family is literally starving and his wife is dying, Miriam decides to save her mother by becoming the new moneylender of the town. And she goes around and collects his debts and takes names.
I'm a boss-ass bitch.
The next character we learn about is Wanda. She has a very sad home life. We learn about all the dead babies buried beneath the tree in front of her house. We start out learning that her mother had a lot of miscarriages, and every time she had a stillbirth, her father buried the baby underneath this tree, and that's out in the front yard. And she eventually dies, having died in childbirth, and he buries her underneath the tree as well. And so then they kind of feel like her mother's spirit is in the tree, and they always go out to the tree to talk to their mother and get advice from her. Wanda has 2 living brothers and her abusive alcoholic father. Her father tries to marry her off several times throughout this book, and she's not having any of it. He tries to sell her off for really meager sums, and he obviously doesn't value his daughter whatsoever. Thankfully, Miriam comes by trying to collect debt, and Wanda's father doesn't have any money because he spends all of his money on gambling and alcohol. Miriam decides to have Wanda's father's debt settled by having Wanda work for Miriam at Miriam's house. She also decides to have Wanda go and be the debt collector so that Miriam can stay more at home and work on the books or go to farther distances while Wanda does the regular debt collecting and it looks more professional. One day, when Wanda is working at Miriam's house, her little brother Stepan comes running up to her and says that her little brother Sergei needs help. Wanda has to go help her brother because he was hunting in the woods and the Starrick controls the woods. The Starrick caught him hunting and took his soul away. Wanda really doesn't want to help because her brothers have never been anything but a burden to her, and she really just sees them as another reason that her mother died. Her mother didn't die giving birth to either of them, but she just sees it as, more toll on her body that eventually led to her death. Wanda decides to help her brother anyway, out of the goodness of her heart. Thankfully, Wanda gets the idea to use the tree in her front yard for help, so she takes some bark from it and makes some tea from the bark and gives that to her brother, and he vomits and everything, but he's got his soul back and he's good. I really love watching the way that Wanda slowly learns to care for her brothers. They all start helping each other out and being nice to each other and doing things for each other to make their lives a little bit easier while living with their terrible father. So Miriam kind of upsets the balance in the world by getting so much money. People didn't notice her tiny town before. She's making the town more prosperous by bringing in different goods. This winter demon called the Starrick takes notice. She notices more and more footprints and signs that the Starrick has been around her house, and it's really threatening and scary, so she hires Wanda's little brother Sergei to come and tend to the goats and sleep there at night so that they have some form of protection. The Starrick eventually leaves Miriam some silver, and she figures out that he does this because he wants her to turn it to gold. She's been too profitable, she's turned too much money into too much profit, and he sees it as her spinning silver into gold, and now she has to perform the trick for him. Miriam takes the Starrick silver and turns it into gold through capitalism. She goes off and finds a jeweler to make the silver that he gives her into a ring. She then sells the ring to a duke. This duke is enamored by the ring, and everyone who sees the ring is just drawn in by it, because this silver isn't a normal silver, it's kind of an enchanted silver from the Starrick. Miriam gets the gold from selling the ring, and then the Starrick finds her when she's on her way home and immediately takes the money. The Starrick soon gives her more silver to turn into gold, and it's a harder task because it's more money she has to make profit from. She has to find all of this money from somewhere. She goes back to the jeweler with the silver. The jeweler has the bright idea that instead of taking all of this silver and turning it into several rings, they should turn it into a crown and try and sell it to the duke's daughter, because the duke will not want that silver being sold to other people. He's vain and wants to have the exclusivity of being the only one with that silver. Miriam turns the silver from the Starrick into gold 3 times for him, and he tells her that once she has done this 3 times, he is going to take her as his bride. She doesn't believe he's actually going to do this, but he does. He steals her away to his winter kingdom, and she can't go home. Once Miriam is in the Starrick's kingdom, she is suddenly capable of actually turning silver into gold. Since she has done this task 3 times in the human world, it has proven her worth or something like that, and in the Starrick's realm, she has this magic. So when she is in his castle, she can touch silver and just turn it into gold. She makes a deal with the Starrick that every day she gets to ask him 3 questions. He locks her in her rooms and tells her maids not to answer any of her questions, because she's put such a value on his answers to questions, she won't get them from anyone else. This leads to a very frustrating, slow progression in what we can learn about the Starrick's kingdom and his magic and what's going on. So it's like, in the beginning of the book, there's this like fast pace, so many things happen, and then it just kind of like slows down for a while. I don't mind it that much, but it's something to note if you hate slow pacing. Our third main character is named Irina, and she is a duke's daughter who gets married off to a guy who is possessed by like a demon thing. It's like the demon that's in opposition to the Starrick. I never really got that interested in Irina's character. She was always pretty bland to me. I forgot to mention, Miriam is Jewish, and it's really good to see how the author plays that into the story. Even though it's a fantasy, you see real world issues. You see the prejudice against Jewish people. There was one point where Miriam is going to sell the tiara to Irina's family, and Irina walks in and sees Miriam and the jeweler, and she's like, I walked in expecting to see a new husband, but it was just some Jews. You can't say that, Irina. I think that's another reason I could never get too into Irina's character. She walks up, sees Miriam, and is like, oh, it's a Jew. Fuck you. Irina is given this silver crown as a gift for her dowry, and she goes off to marry this dude, and she finds out that he is possessed. She figures out that whenever she's wearing the tiara or wearing the silver ring or anything of that silver, if she looks into mirrors, she can go into this winter world. So she always runs off to her room after dinner before her husband can get to her, and she puts on some winter clothes and escapes into this little wonderland through the mirror. I feel like that's all there really was to Irina's character, though. I just don't feel like there was that much else there. Like, that initial part is kind of interesting, but her whole story was literally just that over and over again. Oh, I'm hiding from my husband. Oh. I love how Wanda's father dies. He dies from his own flaws. One day, Wanda comes home and her father is drinking and happy and hanging out with some dude who sells alcohol, right? And he's like, "Oh, Wanda, I'm so happy you're home. You're going to marry this man, and he is going to give me 1 bottle of alcohol a week for you. Isn't this wonderful?" She's like, "You sold me for 1 bottle of alcohol a week? I don't think so.
I'm a boss ass bitch.
No, not doing it." And so he starts beating the crap out of her, like taking the poker from the fireplace, beating the living hell out of this girl. And the guy who was going to marry her sees this and he's like, but that doesn't stop her father, so he just keeps going. So her brothers try and stop him. They're like grabbing him, and one is over behind him, and the father trips over one of the sons and hits his head in the fireplace. The food that was cooking in the fireplace falls on his face. He's burning on fire. They go and they're trying to stamp out the fire, and he stops moving, and that's how they know he did. I just think that it's really fitting that his own flaws were what killed him in the end. Both Sergei and Wanda decide that they are going to be blamed for killing their father, no matter if it was in self-defense. So they run off into the woods and tell their youngest brother to go to Miriam's family and they will take care of him. Now, Miriam is gone. She's married to the Starrick, and her parents keep thinking that she's going to come back. Any minute now, she's going to come back. They're sort of in a daze, and they really just don't understand what's going on. I think the Starrick kind of has a bit of an enchantment on them. Stepan goes to live with Miriam's parents, and things are the best that they've ever been in his life. Honestly, he's getting steady food. Miriam's parents are too nice for their own good, so it's a great place for him since he's never had any real kindness. I like it. It's cute. It's a found family. Her parents, even though I hate them for, not sticking up for themselves enough to not, die, it's just, you see the wholesomeness and the found family aspect, and it's just heartwarming. I do really like seeing all of these empowered female characters. I love how they smash expectations for their time periods. Irina finds a way to... No, Irina sucks. Never mind. Not Irina. But Miriam and Wanda both smash expectations. Miriam finds a way to save her whole family. She supports her whole family. She's the boss of that house.
I'm a boss ass bitch.
And Wanda saves her little brother. She finds a way to make it through life, even though she has lost both of her parents, several siblings. She has had nothing going for her. She finds a way to find a bond with her and Miriam and get profit out of that. She could have been married off several times over. She could have been just paying off her father's debt forever, but she finds a way to get Miriam to pay her, and she hides the money, and she keeps that for herself because she knows she's gonna need it someday. She plans ahead. She knows that she's not in a stable environment, and she needs to think ahead to the future for herself. She's even smart enough to send away her smallest brother and have him go to the nice family because she knows he's not going to get killed for killing their father, and he's not going to make it through whatever she and Sergei are going to have to go through. She knows what to do. She's such a survivalist, and I love her. Then you don't get to see her having to survive too much because she finds this cabin with her brother that's enchanted because it's also technically in the Starrick's world. It was this witch's old cabin, and so Sometimes food will appear because it was in the house in the Staric land, and different things will appear. And so she's doing all of these things within the house. She'll find thread that needs to be woven, and she'll take that thread and weave it, and then she'll make it into a pattern, and she'll see it turned into a new pattern in the morning, and she'll start following that pattern because she knows that the house is telling her to do a specific thing. She's trying to repay these magical favors and knows that there's probably a balance somewhere within the house. She doesn't take chances. She makes sure that her debts are paid. This wouldn't be my channel without footage of dogs. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Esmond. You guys are so cute. Yes, you are. Oh my goodness, hello. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening. We learn about all the dead babies buried beneath the tree in front of her house. It's the dead baby tree. Want to go outside and play at the dead baby tree?